Hi everyone, Hush-Thany Grim Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Mastodon album, Hushed and Grim. Yes, this is the 8th full-length LP from legendary sludge metal outfit Mastodon. A band I hope needs no intro at this point, since they've had about as much influence on modern metal as one band can, but interestingly, Hushed and Grim makes for the band's first double album, with 15 tracks and almost 90 minutes of material, which did have me a little freaked considering the state of the band's last record. Say what you will about Emperor of Sand's survival and mortality concept, instrumentally and compositionally, I still found the record to be less than sufficient, with the band watering down their sludgy and progressive style with notes of alt metal and alt rock, some of their weakest and weirdest vocal performances to date too. But in a way, I see this new record as a part of a larger pendulum swing that's been going on in the band's discography over the past decade, as at one point we had the band taking a much simpler and more direct approach with their sound on The Hunter, which was then followed by the much more thorough and solid Once More Around the Sun. And now, after Emperor of Sand, the band is hitting us with this heavy, somewhat psychedelic prog sludge odyssey with lots of sprawling verses, solo passages, and builds. I wouldn't say Hushed and Grim is a night and day difference in terms of sound and style when comparing it to any of Mastodon's previous works. I mean, given the band's progressive pedigree, we shouldn't be surprised to hear them drop in a sci-fi spooky synth solo on the back end of Skeleton of Splendor, or suddenly breaking into this vaguely South Asian drone in the second half of Dagger. Like with Emperor of Sand, the band is trying out some new stuff here and there, but I'm happy to report that this time around, the risks that Mastodon takes on Hushed and Grim, for the most part, come across sensible and tasteful. There are loads of tracks on this thing that feel like classic Mastodon all the way, but with more of a chilling, melancholic edge, like Pain with an Anchor, which features some really grim guitar leads, heavy drums and bass, lots of dramatic soaring cleans topping that, which contrasts really well with the more thunderous passages of the song. The whole thing feels like being trapped in a purgatorial nightmare, with pain and grief and suffering being turned into medicine. Then there's the even heavier CRUX, whose crushing choruses are absolutely perfect for these refrains of "I feel pressure." The sound of this track, as usual with Mastodon, is thick, it's muscular, the vocals bellow as if I'm hearing Zeus calling down from the clouds. Following the first third of this LP, though, the band begins to shake things up instrumentally, and as a result of that, stuff can go either way. Skeleton of Splendor, I mentioned earlier, is another attempt of the band to make a Metallica-style ballad, but maybe with a more eerie approach. The tune's not bad, and I like the attempt overall, but the mix and sound of this track is so drony and bassy, it kind of takes away from the finesse of the performance. Then there's the even clumsier The Beast, whose guitars sound like a cross between country prog sludge. The song Honest to God sounds like Chris Stapleton with a horrendous effect on his voice, singing with Opeth as the backing band at shotgun point. So yeah, not that great. But by that same token, we do get the song Teardrinker, one of the band's catchiest and most anthemic songs ever. With the sweet and sinister guitar leads as well as mid-paced grooves, the song almost has like a gothic quality to it, which I like a lot. There's something sort of campy about it as well that reminds me of a song Ghost would write. And again, I mean in a good way, because I think Mastodon does a great job of kind of making these elements work for their sound. Pushing the Tides is the record's first true blue ass kicker. Totally relentless, performance is killer. It's just a shame that the mix is a little out of whack. The drums are so aggressively placed on this one. The toms and kick especially kind of overtake everything else. Still, the riffs on this track are absolutely disgusting, and the way the band works in some of these trippy synth leads here and there is great. Peace and Tranquility isn't a bad melodic number either. It has these clean style vocals that kind of smack of 80s era Ozzy Osbourne. The song also undergoes a couple of pretty cool groove and riff changes. Dagger, I mentioned earlier, does have that cool aesthetic and stylistic change of pace, really sort of transports you to another part of the world in a way, but I wish it had a stronger ending, even if the abrupt finish it undergoes kind of plays into the narrative of the lyrics. Savage Lands brings another killer cut into the mix, but then Gobblers of Dregs, the longest cut on this LP, is long-winded in absolutely the worst way, which is weird because the track just has an 8-minute runtime, not really that long by prog standards. The band has written longer songs than this that are more engaging from front to back, but yeah, the epic intro on this thing kind of melts quickly into this slow-mo metal ballad with tons of washed-out vocals. The second half of the track undergoes an awkward groove switch with these delayed rhythm guitars like U2's The Edge has popped into the studio to do backup. And this isn't the only longer song on this record that, for whatever reason, is kind of a dud. There's Sickle and Peace, which has some of the most tedious verses on the entire LP. The grooves on this track are so damn stiff, and the verse vocals are just going nowhere fast. Then Eyes of Serpents, oddly enough, feels like a heavy take on maybe a medieval ballad of some sort in 3/4. I do like the pronounced ascending and descending vocal melodies of the track, and I typically do find favor with a lot of folk-inspired metal, but once more, this is a track whose blaring instrumentation kind of crushes the ballad at the core of the song. The ending of the record was definitely a highlight too, a truly righteous finish for the project, but overall I don't know if doing a longer record was the best idea this time around for Mastodon, because it's not like these tracks and their narratives, at least, you know, in my opinion, coalesced into this like really grand and epic experience. For the most part, the track list here just ended up feeling a little bloated and somewhat lacking in variation. Don't get me wrong, the band does take some risks and works in some extra bits of instrumentation here and there, but given this record again is almost 90 minutes, they certainly could have pushed that further. I'm not in love with the record, and people who aren't already Mastodon fans may have a hard time getting into this very hefty and winding project. Still, it's a much more consistent, robust, and impressive offering than Emperor of Sand was. Feeling a light to decent 6 on this one, Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, music, Mastodon, forever.